Hola, and welcome to the Overly Animated podcast where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Castlevania, which we'll be talking about today. I'm your host, Alice Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Sam Quattro.
Hello.
And today we'll be specifically discussing the second season of Castlevania, which was released last week. We are recording this the day after Halloween, so it's somewhat thematically appropriate. Spooky stuff to talk about here. We did actually discuss season 1 of Castlevania a little bit before, so if you want to find our previous thoughts on Castlevania, you can do that at overlyanimated.com. You can also subscribe to our podcast where we talk about a lot of other animated stuff at overlyanimated.com/iTunes. You can find us on YouTube at overlyanimated.com/YouTube. And wherever you listen to podcasts, we always appreciate any ratings or reviews you want to leave us. But we have 8 episodes of Castlevania that dropped on Netflix earlier. That's double the amount that we had in season 1 to talk about.
Wow.
So a big jump in content. But is it a big jump in quality? We'll discuss briefly a non-spoiler version in case you're just interested in general thoughts before you want to dive in. And then later we'll jump into more detailed stuff. But we'll begin with general non-spoilery thoughts. Sam, how did you feel about the second season of Castlevania?
So I felt like it had a lot more to offer than the first season in terms of plot and, just general goings on. But it was way more slower paced, given that, you have to pad out 8 episodes as opposed to 4, right? Yeah, it was a lot more slower paced, a lot more political intrigue happening rather than like straight up bloody action, which I thought was interesting. I'm not too big on political intrigue media, but I thought, this was pretty straightforward and not entirely convoluted and boring, so that's always good. I did miss some of the action, though we did have quite a bit of a disemboweling happening, and, so on and so forth.
We didn't have enough disemboweling, is what you're saying?
We didn't have enough, okay, spoilers, no babies got eaten, so...
Darn.
Yeah, darn, right? No, but I thought the political intrigue stuff was okay. I kind of wish, one thing that the season didn't do, it didn't focus too much on a certain group of characters, which I kind of hope that it would have, but instead we just got, like Game of Thrones, but not. And it was fine. It's fine. But I thought it was very interesting, and I watched it all in one sitting. Because it was just very compelling, and it was great. It was nice. Whether or not it was better or worse than season 1, that's more or less up in the air. I thought it did a lot of things better than season 1. I thought season 1 did a lot of things better, but I also thought season 1 kind of felt a little bit rushed in comparison to this. But then again, this is just like, we have an episode later, and we're still doing the same shit, and not like snap, working on whatever we got to work on. So, yeah, that's that on that.
Okay. I find it interesting you didn't want to commit to this being better than season 1, because I think it's clear.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, I get that season 1 is a little weird because it's like an introductory into this season, right? Like, in 4 episodes, it acts more as an introduction than anything. But I think that this season does feel a lot more complete. I think that when it goes to our main characters, the chemistry is already like well set, and so it ends up being fun every time we cut back to them. Obviously, you wish there was more of it, but I think that in the time that we get with them, it's almost always a good time spent. I do agree that when we go back to the villains, which is more of the main focus of the season, it does feel a little slow at times. And if you're not into the political intrigue, then like I can imagine some of it gets boring. But I think they spice it up a little bit with Dracula. I think he's still the main character, main villain in this season. And I think that he has the most interesting stuff going on there. And so that keeps that side of it exciting. And also the fight sequences, while there's not as much action as in season 1, I'll give you that. But I think that the fight sequences in this season are the best that this show has done so far. Like, especially episode 7, like, without spoilers, episode 7 is the best episode of this show. And I think that even if you didn't watch any other episode, like that episode alone is impressive just in terms of its action sequences. So
yeah,
I think that when it does action, it dedicates time to it, and it does it really well. So I'm fine with sacrificing volume for quality in that sense. And all in all, I think that this season was really stronger than season 1. There are bits and pieces we'll dissect later on, but yeah, I think that this is building perfectly on what season 1 started.
I don't know. I kind of feel like season 1 and season 2 are two completely different beasts. Like you said, like season 1 is kind of more of an introduction, whereas season 2 is more like the long haul. Part of me kind of wishes I could see what a 4-episode season 2 would be like, and just have every single season be 4 episodes, like it's a fucking like Sherlock or some sort of BBC show. But I digress. I thought that it was just different. It's like comparing apples to oranges, even though, you know, they're still fruits. It's still the same show. It's different.
So you're saying season 1 is like an apple and season 2 is like a watermelon.
Yeah.
Like different sizes.
Yes. Yes. That's not a bad comparison. I like that better than apples to oranges because I hate oranges. But I love apples and I like watermelon.
But do you like blood oranges?
I don't like any oranges.
Oh, okay. Well.
But I'm not a fan of citrus fruits. I apologize.
We'll save that for the hot takes on cold food section at the end, but to just get further into that. But so those are our general non-spoilery thoughts, as vague as we could be. Actually, one brief. I probably should have mentioned this at the very beginning, but like in terms of gore, since that does seem to be a thing that people like are pushed back from in terms of watching this show because it's publicized that like there's a lot of blood and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, did you get the sense that it was toned down for this season? Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it wasn't. Well, it was not like super duper extreme like it was last season. It wasn't gratuitous or over the top. It was pretty minimal, I would say.
Yeah, like I feel like the actual body parts going around was a lot less, and I think that that's the main issue with gore, at least in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Like cartoon blood at the end of the day is cartoon blood, but although I understand that people are sensitive to that, so like each person is different. But in case you were worried about that, it's a lot less than it was in season 1. So. Hopefully, like I understand if your personal case is against gore, but this season did tone that down in case you were worried about that continuing. So just as a public service announcement.
Yeah, it is pretty okay. I wouldn't say minimal like I did earlier. It's less, way less. Yeah. Not like, you know, they were not padding out every single minute with just fountains of blood everywhere.
Right. So if you want to go watch Castlevania on your own, we invite you to go do that, and we'll begin talking about more specific stuff. So this season is clearly split up into the Trevor, Sypha, Alucard side of things, and the Dracula villain, vampire army side of things.
Yeah, the War Council.
Yeah, the War Council is the group that they're called. Of the two like main plot lines of the season, like which one did you enjoy seeing more when it came up?
Honestly, I like the whole Sypha, Trevor, Alucard stuff. Mostly because I don't feel like we saw that much of it. And I was getting a little bit dragged out with the whole War Council and Carmilla and the fucking Viking guy, and it's just there's just a lot of stuff going on with that I wasn't super duper invested in, even though I did think it was very digestible. It's like, it's how you'll eat like a cracker or something. Like crackers don't really have too much taste, but they sustain you. So, and the whole War Council thing. That was maybe like, a zesty cracker with like some tomato basil but it's still a cracker. It's not like the finest piece of garlic bread out there. Garlic vampires.
Wow. But yeah, well, I guess we can talk about the War Council first, because I do think that that's a part of this that stands out in terms of like how much time is dedicated to this side of things of Carmilla scheming behind Dracula's back, trying to take away his army, convincing his generals Hector and Isaac to join sides, and Dracula like slowly being sick of things, and like because of that he lets this stuff happen. And so I think that all the talking dialogue stuff, like convincing people onto their different sides, like it does get repetitive after a bit, especially like by the end where it's like Hector convincing Isaac to join the team sort of. But at the same time, I think there are like little bits and pieces that stand out to me. Like, first of all, Dracula himself is an interesting character in this season, because we're still focusing on his depression, but like it does feel like it's advancing to the point of him like being suicidal, or like him being so focused on the goal of killing humans that his lack of care for the people who are helping him ends up biting him in the ass. And so I enjoy seeing Dracula like slowly deteriorate to the point where like his own castle gets away from him, literally speaking. So I think that Dracula's scenes in this season were great, especially because I was worried about after season 1. I was like, well, how much of Dracula are we actually going to get? And we did get enough Dracula that I was excited for him in this season.
Yeah, I thought Dracula was the standout character. I would call him more of an antagonist than a straight up villain at this point in time with this season. Mm-hmm. Considering how we got like a glimpse behind the scenes of him just like, withering away in his study, just being all emo and shit. And I don't know, I thought he was very sympathetic in that way, even though he was just like still murdering a bunch of people, and we get like a nice little flashback of him murdering an entire town just for fun.
Yeah, Dracula, when I was young, I used to have fun doing this.
Yeah, I used to just like fucking murder people for fun, and just cut to him like killing a bunch of shop merchants in the worst way. But I thought he was rather relatable, and rather, I don't agree with maybe taking down the entire human race and the vampire race with you and just leaving this hole in the earth where those people once stood. But the idea of being so racked with grief that you can't think of anything else but to just destroy the world as you know it, whether it be through suicide or just waging a war on humanity, it's deep feels, man.
Yeah, it's like self-destruction / lashing out to destroy other things, sort of thing.
Yeah,
because also,
yeah.
Well, like they touch on also like he's not even feeding anymore, so it's like destruction in both directions, really.
Yeah, truly. I don't know, like not to say that like I would give myself over to Dracula if like he wanted me to be on his war council or something. But I can see where he's coming from in that regard.
Do you see yourself more as a Hector or an Isaac?
Hector was the one who just, like, brought pets back to life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be Hector. Isaac is, like, way too... So Isaac, he whips himself.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Pretty much every day, I think. And just does all this, like, self-punishment stuff for really no discernible reason or logic that I can follow.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, he thinks that the world was once full of love, but now it isn't, and Dracula is bringing back the love in the world because this, that, and the other, and it's, like, really out there, because he's not totally all in his head, I think. Hector, on the other hand, he's cute, he brings back puppies, he gets described as, like, a puppy himself, which is very # relatable to me. because I am also very puppy-like in my demeanor and actions. So I was feeling Hector more so than Isaac. Also, Isaac just like would ram his thumbs into people's eyeballs, and that's how he would kill them. So apples and oranges.
Yeah, because I'm on the other end. I really loved Isaac in this season, and Hector, I kind of got bored by him by the end. Although it seems like they both have their diverging setups for season 3. But I think that Isaac is interesting because like how loyal he ends up being to Dracula. Like somehow surrounded by all these vampires, like he's the only one who ends up being willing to sacrifice his life. We get that scene where like Dracula goes up to Isaac. It's like, you're the only person I trust at this point, and Dracula's kind of defeated, and so that relationship felt pretty real to me. Like you're the only person that actually knows what I'm doing here.
Aww.
So I felt that, and then at the very end where Isaac is actually doing his last stand, and Dracula loves him to the point of sending him away into the desert. Like, don't die for me. Like, you've got other stuff to do. And he sends him out, and Isaac is in pain. So like, I really enjoyed Isaac in this season. I think that he has, he got a lot of emotions out of me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hector, on the other hand, like he gets manipulated pretty quickly by Carmilla.
I mean, wouldn't you if you were approached by the sexy vampire lady who could eat you?
Tell us how you really feel about Carmilla, Sam.
I mean, okay, I don't have to extrapolate that much. If you know anything about vampires and also Castlevania, you'll know that Carmilla is like one of the first vampire stories, or like not one of the first, obviously. There's been, thousands upon thousands of stories about vampires. One of the first that centers around the female vampire and the lesbian, bisexual tie with vampires and ladies. So that's that on that. If you've ever seen the web series Carmilla, it's based off of that old book. Castlevania obviously has its own adaptation, etc., blah, blah, blah.
And I will comment, they do briefly touch on that with her, because when she's introduced, she says something like, I would sleep with Godbrand if all the vampire males and half the females died. So there's something there.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't totally extrapolated on, but it was there. It was there. It existed.
And another thing with Isaac, while we're on this topic, we also get a flashback of where he finally snapped and began his hatred of humanity. Like, he was a slave, and this friar person he was trying to help, he says I wanted to help because I loved you. And the guy ends up whipping him anyway. But there's also that brief moment of gay representation in terms of do we interpret it that way as love?
That's how I felt. Yeah,
it is a little bit weird because it's a slave owner relationship too. Yeah. So that adds a wrench into it. But that's another little piece that we get thrown in terms of that.
Yeah, I think it was if you are in the know and you read for those sort of things, it's something that wasn't totally 100% spelled out, considering, he says he loves you, but it's a friar, or he could be a father figure, he could be whatever, if the shorthand for romantic intentions in our dumb little world is, a kiss, or a touch on the cheek, or blah, blah, blah. And, we didn't get that there, so it's more, I would say, more ambiguous than not. Not to say that the power of I love you is null and void, but I don't know. Maybe the writers, producers didn't want to completely spell out all the gay shit that they had at their disposal. You can have Godbrand, who is just a drunken, belligerent idiot who is just yeah, I fuck people, whatever. And, he fucks women. But we can't have Isaac be oh yeah, I fuck men, and have him, well, it's not within his character in the series, of course. But even with Carmilla, we didn't have too much of a straightforward, blunt, oh yeah, I fuck women, and I don't really fuck men. it's more like, oh yeah, if half of the women died and all the vampire men died, I would sleep with you, Godbrand. It wasn't so much like so much of a representation thing, more of like a nod to like, hey, we know what Carmilla and Isaac's sexuality is. Do you? Wink, wink.
Yeah, wink, wink. With Carmilla, another issue there, and something that we commented on in season 1 is just like there's not enough female characters in this show. So like Carmilla doesn't really interact with any other females as far as I can.
Yeah,
remember.
She mentions like interacting with them. She's like at one point she says something along the lines of, all the women in the War Council don't want to talk because they're just rolling their eyes at all you like dumb men's like belligerence or whatever. And like none of the other lady vampires talk at all in the entirety of these 8 episodes, which is fucked up. That's
yeah. We're only allowed to have one female vampire at a time on the fill the quota, I guess.
Yep.
But, so yeah, that's something that could be improved upon. But Carmilla herself is a decent addition. She talks a lot, and she's the plot propelling thing of like designing this plan to take out Dracula and doing it behind his back and bringing Godbrand on board. Carmilla does stuff. We spoke briefly about romance, and on the other side of this is Trevor and Sypha and Alucard. And I don't want to jump to romance or make connections, but the chemistry is palpable in this season between.
It's like a total love triangle that they're going for, isn't it?
Sort of. Although, honestly, I think that Alucard Trevor is stronger than Alucard Sypha. Just in my opinion.
Do you think that Sypha Trevor is stronger than all of them?
I think so. I think that.
I think that's like the obviously I spoiled it in the last podcast that that's the end game TM couple, and like we see hints of that at the end of the season. Yeah, I definitely think that Sypha and Trevor are given more like stuff going on and more, romantic moments, such as Sypha falling asleep on Trevor's shoulder under his stinky blanket, and it's like so romantic. So. Yeah,
and like Sypha like trying to find stuff to bond with Trevor over, like, hey, I'm alone now. Haven't you been alone for a while? And like Trevor just being terrible at supporting.
Yeah, and at the same time, Trevor and Alucard are just like bickering at each other.
Which is great. Like,
yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. Like, if you want that belligerent sexual attention, that's there.
Exactly. Like there's like in the city, like before they leave, it's just like you kids can handle yourself, right? And it's like sure, and it's like fuck you, piece of shit. Like just back and forth like immediately. And then at the very very end, where they're like saying goodbye, like Alucard greets him off with a middle finger and a smirk. Like it's great.
It's great.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I like their testy banter, but I also like that they eventually, when shit goes down, like they work together. So like it all works out in the end. But in the meantime, they're all angry at each other, and a lot of this chemistry is built up in Trevor's basement, which is a giant library full of magic. And I think that one problem I have seen people talk about a lot is that because they're stuck in the library for a lot of this season, it feels like they're kind of limited in that sense. I don't know how you felt about the time that they spent in the library, and like, if it really contributed to the season.
I don't know. It's just kind of to compare it to Avatar: The Last Airbender, as I am wont to do. It's like how at the end-ish of book 2, they're all just kind of stuck in Ba Sing Se, and that's just where they are for like 5 or so episodes. And it's nice to be like familiar with a place and just have more like character development happen than plot development. And on that end, I did enjoy their little stay in the basement. On the other hand, I mean, it did get a little bit stale with, staying in the castle all the time, and then also staying in the library all the time, and it's just like, back and forth, just in the same fucking place all the goddamn time. And whereas compared to last season, everything was constantly moving around. Even within just like 4 episodes, we went to how many different locations. So it's really like a matter of preference and what you're looking for in the narrative itself. I personally enjoyed spending time just, sitting around reading books, trying to figure out what to do, and like having character development piggyback off of that than like having to like go through, Bridget and the underground catacombs and this, that, and the other. The Dracula stuff in the castle all the time I was less of a fan of, but that's more of like I would rather spend my time in a library than a haunted castle. So that's that.
And also, like, Sypha and Trevor and Alucard are just more fun. So,
exactly, they are. They're so much fun. Sypha is the best. She is wonderful and amazing, and I love her.
Yeah, she gets a lot more witty stuff. We got a little taste of it in season 1, but like here she gets a lot more of punchlines to deliver. In the library, there's the thing like I discovered an entire box of spells about penises.
She did. I have that screen cap. That's great.
But also, like, she teases Trevor around, but also, like, calls out Alucard and, like, being a grown-up baby, pretty much, because he's a vampire, so he literally grew up too fast, so, like...
Yeah, I guess, like, he aged fast, because that happened in Twilight as well, BTW. If you ever read Breaking Dawn, Renesmee...
Is this in the FAQ with the dildos?
No.
It's not?
The FAQ did not have dildos, and it's in the fucking book. She just ages up really quickly. She isn't like...
No. The FAQ is about vampire sets. So now I remember.
Oh my god. No, she, like, okay, Renesmee isn't like a baby for 5 months. She, like, over the span of, like, 5 months, she goes from baby to, like, 5 years old. So that's, like, the aging thing.
Yeah. And that does remind me that, like, when they arrive at the house and it's all destroyed, I think Alucard says something like, "I'm just kind of disturbed that somehow I had more of a childhood than you did." So, like, I like that. And then Trevor is just like, "And your dad was fucking Dracula," and they all chuckle together. So,
what
like,
was a childhood in, like, the 1400s anyway? I mean, like, if you're 12 or 13, what do you do? Do you even have a childhood anymore? Shouldn't you be, like, working on the farm or whatever they were doing at that point in time?
Theoretically, although also, like, they both come from privileged families. I mean, Alucard's dad is Dracula, and Trevor, like, had rich people as his parents. So, like, if he had a childhood, he would have just hung around on trees and stuff, and he'd have been fine. So yeah, there's also we kind of got sidetracked, but with Sypha, in addition to being funny, she's also a badass. Like
she is.
She the fight sequences that we get a lot more of her fighting. I really like her being a total wizard in this season. I especially like in the final fight scene. I guess we'll begin to talk about that anyway.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, so like in that final fight scene where they enter Dracula's castle, she's doing the ice, the ice arrows, I guess you would call them, and like shooting them. But also she like does an ice wall and it ends up slicing through a person with the wall. I was impressed by that. And then like Alucard turns into a wolf in the middle of there.
Oh yeah, he does, and I thought that was like wild. Like, what are you doing being a wolf, Alucard?
I did notice after the fact that like he does actually turn into a wolf in the intro to the show, like the intro that goes really quickly. But I hadn't made the connection until I actually saw him do it in the fights. That was him. But yeah, Alucard is pretty cool. He's just swinging swords everywhere and teleporting back and forth. and Trevor is swinging the whip all over the place. Like my words don't do it justice. Like it's a very well animated fight. I think that one of the people who worked on the show posted something about how that scene took double the frames of what a normal sequence of that length would take. So they definitely dedicated their time to it, and it shows. So like I really love that. I don't know how you felt about the whole action of episode 7.
So, okay, we were talking about it on our Discord #plug with our patron Michael, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, this episode for Love, it's like probably the best. It's like way better than this, that, and the other episode from other shows," and basically convinced Dylan to watch it. So, and I was like, okay, I hadn't gotten to that episode in that point in my watch yet. So I was like, okay, I'll look out for that. Admittedly, I feel like I might have been more impressed if I didn't like read him saying that. Not to like knock on Michael. It's just like you know, I had like higher expectations. But yeah. I did think it was very good. It was very well animated, well paced. Just amazing things happening, especially the latter half with Alucard and Dracula just fighting together. And at the very end, there's this whole sequence where they bring the fight into Alucard's childhood bedroom, and it's like very tear-jerking, and it's so like tender of a moment. And it just happens. But it was like a spectacular show of skill, that entire episode, and really like applause to the entire crew of Castlevania for that. You know, like people don't really think about what kind of work goes into sequencing animation like that, and how fast everything goes, and how many frames you need, how well storyboarded it needs to be, this, that, and the other. So like kudos to them.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing. Like almost the entire episode is action. It is fighting, yeah. And it's like a 25-minute episode. It's like it's impressive that it manages to keep the momentum going from beginning to end. Like because even when Alucard faces Dracula at first, and Trevor and Sypha are kind of bumbling around, but like it still feels strong because of just how strong Dracula is, and I think they managed to portray that very well with just them getting annihilated very quickly before they end up gathering forces. Yeah. So I think that all through it they managed to keep it going. And as you mentioned, the Alucard Dracula stuff 1-on-1 is also pretty good. Like they're hover fighting, and then they're like smashing each other through walls. We get to see all the rooms of the castle, I guess, that we saw throughout the season, even though we never really got much of a connection to the rooms. But it's like, hey, there's the place where the blood guy ate dinner or something. It's just like go there for a second, then on to the next room. So like I like, and then Alucard ends up bringing his teleportation and like punching Dracula back and forth. I definitely got the sense of fatigue too, which is kind of impressive. Like at first they're like giving all their energy into the fight, and then by the very end, like the Dracula is kind of stumbling while punching him down, and Alucard is like barely keeping himself together. So and then it climaxes in that room there, and you get the scene of Dracula finally coming to the realization, like, oh wait a second, I'm killing my boy. Like,
yeah, you're my son. Oh my god.
Oh. Yeah, it's like the you get the sense that like the rage blinded him, so that like it didn't really come to him until now, and then Alucard still makes the decision anyway to stake him through the heart, and it's like father, son.
It's very sad. It made me tear up, especially like how the episode was just titled For Love, and there are a couple examples, mostly between Dracula and Isaac, and Dracula and Alucard. You know, like what will you do for love, and like what does love even mean? Like, does it mean sacrificing yourself for the person you love? Does it mean killing somebody for like the love of humanity or the love of the world, or because you love that person and you don't want them to see them spiral even more? It's just a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah, yeah. Like at the beginning, it's like Alucard is like, "I'm gonna stop the war for my mother," and then Dracula's like, "No, the war has to happen because of your mother," sort of thing. So it's like different sides, but Alucard ends up finishing off the job, and Trevor and Sypha come in to finish off the job, and they walk out holding hands with each other as the sun rises.
It's very sweet.
Yeah, it's sweet seeing them all work together. But then the last episode like deals with Alucard kind of mourning. He gets left with the empty castle. Trevor is like, "Hey, have my library too." But the actual end of the episode is Alucard just seeing the ghost of Dracula. He's remembering himself playing with his mom, and he just begins breaking down, crying. And that's the last frame of the season.
I mean, he's an orphan now.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, I guess it fits the tone of the show that we end with just somebody crying.
Yeah.
despite like the quote unquote success of killing Dracula. So I guess it's an interesting decision to do that versus seeing like Sypha and Trevor just drive off into the forest or whatever.
Yeah, just like apparently they're just gonna fight crime together because that's just what they're gonna do. I thought it was a good ending for the season and really didn't put us full circle with Alucard's character, considering he was barely a character in the first season, and he didn't have too much development throughout this season even. I thought it was a good place to land with his character, though. I thought it was good to have somewhere to go further with him, where, he's just stuck with all this knowledge around him that he could read for centuries, but, he doesn't have his parents or his loved ones anymore. And who knows if he will ever find a loved one again. I haven't read the Castlevania wiki enough to see if that'll happen.
Well, that raises a fair point. Of Trevor, Alucard, and Sypha, which one of them changes the most in this season, if any?
I don't know. Maybe Trevor?
I guess. Like, I feel like in season 1, we were already doing the Trevor gets better and, like, more willing to help people. So, like, in this season, it feels like he starts in the right place and he ends in the right place. Except, I guess, now at the end, he's more willing to do it with Sypha as opposed to
I guess so.
I guess that's the only thing. But if you're wanting character development, I think in the main characters, it's not as obvious. With Dracula, I think you see it because, like, in terms of his deterioration. I think Isaac and to a lesser extent Hector, you like sort of see them go through different things. But the main characters, I do think that they kind of stay the same for most of the season.
That's true. I think it's more that we see different sides of them that we didn't see before, not that they specifically changed. Like with Alucard, like his expressed thing from his first face reveal was that he wants to kill Dracula because this, that, and the other, and he does that, but at the end he breaks down crying because he just killed his father and his mother is dead, and there's just a lot of shit going on. And with Sypha, she was admittedly barely a character in the fucking 4 episodes in season 1, and we get to know her more. We get to know more of her personality and how quick and witty and funny she is. With Trevor, I mean, I will say he's less of a lone wolf now. Maybe that's that's that.
So there's small steps, I guess. You're right. One thing I'm worried about with season 3, we killed Dracula.
Oh, he's gonna come back.
You think he's gonna come back? Okay.
Have you never? That's the plot of the Castlevania.
Is it? Hey, look, I'm totally blind. Okay, I'm not assuming anything.
Spoilers for every single Castlevania game. So the reason why Dracula is the antagonist in pretty much all of them is because he, quote unquote, comes back more powerful the next time. So okay. Here's the little rundown. So this. Season 1, Season 2, primarily based off of Castlevania 3 and whatever else Castlevania. Again, I haven't played the games, I just read the... Don't yell at me, I'm just trying to be more informed without having to spend money and time I don't have. So basically, it's based on that, and Dracula dies. But the first Castlevania, not the third, the first, you fight Dracula again as Simon Belmont, as opposed to Trevor Belmont. And the story goes, Dracula was in some sort of slumber, rehabilitative, regenerative state throughout then, and he just fucking comes back to life, and you gotta kill him again. So, Dracula's gonna come back. I'm certain of that.
Okay, I'd be happy for him to come back because I think that he's the most interesting, but also this ending sets up Hector and Isaac to be still important in that season, which is why
so maybe Dracula won't come back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would like Dracula to come back, but I think that this ending is kind of setting up Hector and Isaac to be main people, which I'm not totally excited about, but like, I could see them doing something interesting.
I think Isaac's point would be interesting because how his season ends, he is in the desert and he's at an oasis and a bunch of like assholes come around and start beating him up. He's like, okay, whatever, and then he kills them all. And he brings them back as zombies because he's a forge master and that's just what the fuck they do. And he's like, oh, I'm going to make a zombie army because Dracula would have wanted it. And that's that on that. So I'm interested to see where that's going to go. Obviously, it's like a setup for next season. And the stuff with Carmilla and Hector was also kind of a setup for the next season. I was more confused as to what their motivations are. Or like exactly what they're gonna do next season, but they're gonna do something.
Yeah, because with Carmilla, the thing is, she uses her army to invade, and that doesn't really end up doing anything because Dracula's dead anyway. So Carmilla just decides, hey, well, Dracula's dead, I can take over the world now, and Hector, you can make my army for me, and I'm gonna keep you hostage, and I'll be, and he beat him within an inch of his life in the process for that. So he's literally keeping Hector as a pet for.
She could also just threaten to kill him and drink his blood.
I think
he's a vampire.
Yeah, she sort of did that. Like she got very close to his neck a couple of times.
Yeah, very sensual.
Yeah. So Carmilla is gonna try taking over the world on her end, and maybe Isaac is gonna try to destroy the world on his end. Maybe that's the general setup.
And then Trevor and Sypha just gotta fucking figure it all out, and maybe Alucard will come back.
Yeah. So there's something there, and as I mentioned, Isaac, I think gets interesting character work in this season. So I would be more interested in his side just to see if there's anything beyond what we've seen so far, or if it's just gonna be as simple as I gotta kill all the humans for Dracula's memory or something.
Yeah, that's the weak point in Isaac's character for me. He just seemed to just serve Dracula out of friendship, albeit, but it seems way too loyal for me.
Right. And now that he's dead, you wonder, does it mean as much if he's dead? Him still being I want to do this stuff for Dracula, but Dracula's not around to comfort him or have meaningful dialogue with him anymore.
Who knows, man?
Yeah. So we shall see what happens with season 3. Let's just see if I'm missing any other major things. We briefly got the Archbishop back. He didn't have much in this season.
He was zombie.
He was a zombie. He blessed the holy water so that the Dracula's vampires could die when they fell in the water. And also we got the flashback at the very beginning because we need to be reminded that Dracula's wife died and got burned.
Yeah, she died.
So we get that, and we get another shot of the bishop being in front of the burning house with the red behind him. So just continuing that motif. We haven't really talked about Godbrand. He's kind of important in the first half and kind of disappears.
He gets killed. Isaac kills him. That's what happens.
Yeah, then Isaac kills him. But do you have any general thoughts on his character at all?
He was very entertaining, but I kind of wish some of the other vampires besides him and Carmilla would have talked. Maybe there's other lady vampires that were waiting in the wings over there, but no, we got Peter Stormare as Godbrand. He's a Viking and he fucks people and he makes boats out of them apparently.
Yeah, and he calls Hector a bigot for just assuming that he makes boats into things. But even though he does anyway.
Yeah, he does make both out of them. He was very entertaining, and I enjoyed seeing him on screen. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Let's hear the speakers. The speakers also show up at the very beginning, leaving the city, and so they leave Sypha behind. You mentioned Hector's zombie dog. He was cute.
He was very cute. Hector had like a couple of zombie dogs, and there's one in particular. There's a little pug, and he's adorable. He's just the best.
Yeah, I was amazed when I the first dog they showed. I was like, how is it possible that a dog could be missing half its face and they still managed to make it look cute? Like how?
You should make that the thumbnail for this podcast.
Just a half-faced dog.
Yeah, dude.
When they're one Sypha Trevor moment I have here, there's a conversation with Sypha saying, why do all of your stories end with you punching someone in the face? And Trevor's like, because everyone else is a piece of shit. So
they are
nice back and forth. Back Hector, his flashback is that he found his dead dog and he learned how to bring it to life, and this got him to be exiled by his family apparently because those are abominations of nature. I'm sure
it's alchemy or whatever. I don't know what a forge master is. I'm not smart. I'm gonna look it up.
Alchemy, I think, is like a mix of magic and science.
I've never seen Full Metal Alchemist either, so I'm pretty much useless.
Is that our next anime?
I mean, I hear that it's a very good anime, and I'm sure people will tell you that it's very good. I've personally never seen it. And I'm sure everybody will be like, oh my god, you've never seen Full Metal Alchemist? What is wrong with you? Or Full Metal Alchemist, not the bad one, the good one, Brotherhood. That's the good one that people want you to watch. I'm sorry, I don't really like anime that much. That's that on that.
But you like this show.
I mean, the show is kind of an anime, but kind of not.
Let's see. We touched on penises. Okay.
Yeah, penis. Spells about penises. Like, what was that about? I want some more explanation about that. Like, were they making dildos? Were they just like making penises? What were they doing?
Well, these are monster hunters, so like maybe they figured out a way to manipulate the monster's penises to like cause them pain.
I mean, probably, but you know, she says it like, "Oh my, like I just found a box of dildos underneath their bed." Like that's how she says it. So yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Again, you know, vampire dildos and dildos of all sorts. They were things back in the day. I'm not judging.
In the library episode, another Sypha thing is like she finds a spell that could keep the castle in one place. It's like, hey, finally good things happen to me. But then the monsters are trying to break in. See, God hates me. So
that's a really useful screen cap if you find it.
Yeah, lots of God jokes in this show that are pretty good. Like it reminds me of the Trevor's like God shits in my dinner once again. So, lots of God jokes in here. Trevor in the library does another fight sequence we didn't really talk about, but these beasts do try to break into the library, and Trevor like takes down I think like 5 beasts in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like one after one. And at the very end, he's like, I'm armed with a stick because like he's lost all of his weapons at that point. So,
I guess it's worth mentioning he does get the infamous chain whip that shows up in the game. So
yeah. The Morning Star, I think.
Yeah, it seems a little bit impractical but you know, it's a chain whip. Trevor seems very good at handling it. That's that.
Yeah. And finally, this ending sequence has just been me finding Sypha stuff that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best. Why wouldn't we talk about her?
At the very end, when like convincing Trevor to stay, it's like, you could be my handsome sidekick or like my deformed pet bear.
Yeah, I mean, Sypha should just have her own show. Like, where is that spin-off show?
Well, what if season 3 is like Trevor just giving Sypha the reins and like letting Sypha do things? You know?
Sypha in the countryside.
Sypha and Trevor against the universe.
Just being sassy and like taking no guff. I love her.
Yeah, Sypha is great. So we are members of the Sypha fan club. If there's an actual fan club, please forward that to us and we'll join.
Yeah.
But yeah, that concludes our coverage of Castlevania Season 2. Just recently there was an announcement that there will be a Season 3, and it'll be 10 episodes, so even
Why
more.
isn't it 16 episodes? I mean, if we're going to double the episode order, we should go with 16 and not just 10, but...
Yeah, but also at the same time, though, like we said, that part of these stuff dragged, and I think you mentioned something at the very beginning, like what would a 4-episode season of this look like? And
I feel like that would be...
Yeah, after talking through, like, I do think that we skipped over a lot of the like political intrigue stuff. So, like, while it's okay, but I do think that, like, we could, like, pare down the library stuff.
You don't really need to get into the nitty gritty. It's basically, Carmilla comes in to this war council bullshit that Dracula made because why not? And she's like, I was late because this, that, and the other. And then she tries to turn his generals against him, and she turns Hector, and Isaac is still loyal, and blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. Dracula's dead anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, like 10 episodes is it might be a stretch, but we'll see. And at the very least, I'm confident that the peaks of that season will be pretty good to watch for. So that'll be good. But we don't know when that comes out, and so it'll probably be like a year or so before we get back together to talk about this.
Yep.
But until then, there are lots of other Netflix shows that we cover here at Overly Animated. You can always keep up with us at overlyanimated.com. You can also join us on Discord. If Sam previously mentioned that we've talked about Castlevania already there. You can find us at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can also support us financially via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. And thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Carter, aka Cardboard. Thanks.
Why is that the nickname?
I think there's a character from Craig of the Creek, which is not a related show to this, that is named Carter, and he has a cardboard city.
Sure. I hope Carter, you feel okay about that.
Wait, no, the kid has a cardboard castle that moves.
Oh, is that really the thing?
Yeah,
My
because
God.
there's like 10 different rooms in it, and then he ends up like controlling it, so like Dracula controls his castle.
It is related to Castlevania.
Yeah, so there you go, Carter. Thank you for supporting our podcast. Maybe you watch Castlevania, I don't know, but if you've watched Castlevania and you enjoyed it, other shows that we cover on Netflix, BoJack Horseman, that's an adult animated show,
just got announced for season 6.
That's true. More recent podcasts we'll have include Craig of the Creek, Miraculous Ladybug, DuckTales, and animation is wide and a variety of spectrums. Even if you stick to adult animation, there's a lot of mature themes in quote unquote children's animation too. So feel free to check our coverage out on those shows as well. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. It's been fun talking about Castlevania for these 2 seasons, and we'll be eagerly awaiting season 3. Hopefully more Sypha to talk about, because
more Sypha, less beheading and disembowelment. Maybe next season we won't have any.
Well, I thought you said at the beginning that you thought that they should have had more disembowelings.
I mean, I don't know. Okay. I don't know, like, sometimes I prefer, just some good old-fashioned disembowelment. Sometimes I prefer just, like, chilling, talking about politics and, like, magic spells and shit. I don't know.
Right.
One last thing, it kind of bothers me that when the vampires die, they're just, like, dripping pools of blood everywhere. I get that they drink it, but, like... I don't know.
You're saying that they should have digested it by the time they get.
They should have. I don't know. Like, they should have just, like, not had blood, because shouldn't it be, like, in their stomachs or, like, whatever?
Well, also, like, when you get staked, you get staked through your heart. Like, I have no knowledge of vampire lore, but do vampires have hearts then?
I mean, vampires are biologically human, aren't they?
Oh, well, I guess that's true, yeah.
So they should have hearts, but I guess it depends on who you talk to as to whether or not they're beating and still pumping blood.
Yeah, because that if they have hearts, then obviously they do have blood in their bodies. Like that's maybe it's just that like when you become a vampire, your blood vessels like expand so you can fit more blood.
I don't know, but my thing is, if I ever make a vampire thing, I'm just, there's not going to be any blood unless somebody punctures their stomachs, because that's where I think the blood should be.
Okay, well,
or like in their bladders or something. Do they pee blood?
Oh,
do they pee?
Well, Dracula cries blood.
He does cry blood. So, like, what about other bodily fluids?
Yeah, yeah, it's a possibility. But does it
maybe like
all? And does it hurt?
All of their probably not. I mean, if it's just like coming out of their bladder.
This is obviously why we need Sypha's book about spells for penises.
Yeah, so we do, because I need to know, like, do they pee blood? Like, do they ejaculate blood? Like, what's going on? I need to know.
Do they ejaculate blood?
Oh, yeah, do they ejaculate blood? Is that how Dracula got Lisa pregnant? Oh no! Sam,
is that what? Wait, is that why Godbrand feeds so much? Because he fucks all the time.
Yeah,
and so he needs to replenish.
He needs to like be able to get it up. So he needs to feed all the time. So he can have blood in his penis, and when he comes, more blood can just go out. Oh my god. Holy shit.
This feels like a more fitting place to end Castlevania.
Yeah. Tell us if you think okay, tell us about vampire lore and like if they have blood in their penises.
Yeah, last podcast we asked about vampire babies, but now we're getting to the nitty-gritty.
Stephanie Meyer, her lore is that there's like venom and stuff that gets the penis erect or whatever. But
there's got to be more to vampire sets.
There's got why are they just like exploding blood when they get killed? Please tell me.
Yeah,
I would love to know. And just tell me like if vampires ejaculate blood. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so on that note of vampires coming blood, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you later, I guess. Bye.
Goodbye. Have a nice time thinking about what I just said.
Hoorah.
Do they?
I mean, I think we stumbled onto a great theory here, Sam.
I mean, yeah, we did. I just like... And if Dracula cries blood, then what else is going on? Does he also vomit blood if he has to throw up? Does he salivate blood?
I think there's just all the bodily liquids become blood.
Is his earwax just clumped up blood?
And see, this is why water makes them burn, because
it's not blood.
Have water in their system.
Oh my god.